Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From Cardinals headquarters, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, here's the good news. An 0-2 start is not a death sentence. New Orleans last year, Miami the year before, both dropped their first two games to begin the season, only to rebound and make the playoffs. With that said, however, if the Cardinals hope to add their name to that list, as small as it may be, they need to improve. And quick, fast, and in a hurry, Cardinals MJ took a step back yesterday in LA, and that's saying something considering the step they took Week 1 against Washington.
Yeah, and we knew there were going to be growing pains on both sides of the ball. Again, these guys have had a ton of reps in the offseason. The one thing in the first game, I thought they had an opportunity to win. Unfortunately, the game wasn't close. Very similar yesterday. They got to be more competitive from start to finish. I mean, you're not even in these games when it comes to the fourth quarter. You're playing catch-up. You're falling behind. You're basically abandoning the run. So they have issues here, but you'd like to see them play more competitive football. Again, there's going to be some growing pains, and we're going to get into some of those growing pains, what's going to happen in the upcoming week.
Head coach Steve Wilks, addressing the media on Monday, called many of the issues in all three phases of the game, quote, self-inflicted, meaning there are ways to correct things. And as MJ said, we'll get into that here on Cards Cover 2. Also, your questions via social media, hashtag Cards Cover 2 using the number 2. All right, on this Monday, let's take off. And here's what's ahead on the show today. How to get David Johnson more involved. How to get Sam Bradford better protection up front. And not all bad defensively. There were some players who flashed. We'll talk about that throughout the show as well. And, of course, your questions via social media as well. But first, the news of the day. And, yes, changes are coming, perhaps several changes, but it does not sound like a change will be coming at quarterback. As Coach Wilks mentioned, it's not just one thing, it's several things on the offense. And he did say if he believed it was just one thing, specifically Sam Bradford at quarterback, then yes, if he believed the spark was needed, Josh Rosen would start. But right now, it sounds like they're going to keep status quo under center.
And I agree with the decision. The more that you lose, and we'll have that conversation as the next couple of weeks approach, but I still think he gives the best option. Now, he has to play better. He's got to be more accurate. And I don't know if he's feeling the rush or he's looking at the rush, because you're supposed to feel it. And he missed a couple of receivers yesterday. Backside. Ricky Seals-Jones was open. He missed him. Chad Williams was open. He missed him. It looks like Bradford's locking on Larry Fitzgerald, and then he's checking the ball down to a lesser receiver. Sam Bradford has to play better. I know he's been injury-prone throughout his career. To me, he's just got to go in the game and say, listen, there's nothing I can do if I get injured. I got to play better. I got to carry this team a little bit, but it's not just one guy. They're much better in the run blocking. They are in pass protection. They got to find a way to use David Johnson. They cannot have him running passes over the middle. He's going to take more hits than he should as a receiver. They got to work him to the outside on that wheelhouse route. So they got things they got to figure out, and one of those things is scaling the playbook, letting these guys play a little bit faster. But it's across the board. It's not one guy. But Bradford, it starts with the offensive line with protection, okay? And then it goes to Bradford being the quarterback. He's got to play better, more accurate, and to me, he's got to let go. I know that he is concerned probably of getting hit, but you know what? This is the NFL. They'll protect him, but he's got to just open up the offense. But I'm not blaming one guy, and I think they're making the right choice by keeping Sam Bradford at the helm.
And as far as the playbook is concerned, when we hear scale back, that's not going conservative. That just means fewer plays. Because, as Coach Wilks said, they want to, quote, take away a lot of the thinking. He also wants to see the ball pushed downfield more. It was not until that final drive of the ball game on Sunday in which the Cardinals offense crossed midfield into Rams territory. So a lot of work to be done. Some good news. Sounds like Larry Fitzgerald is going to be be okay. They'll be cautious with him this week, though, as he left yesterday's game with a hamstring injury. Linebacker Dennis Gardeck dealing with an ankle issue, and defensive tackle Olsen Pierre, who did not play on Sunday, still has a toe issue. Both will be considered questionable to play this week. Before we move into this coming week, well, we've got to. It's painful, but let's look back and recap Sunday's game in Los Angeles as the Cardinals fell to the Rams by the score of 34-0. Brandon Cooks had a big day here, catching a 20-yard pass from Jared Goff. Cooks on the day, 7 catches for 159 yards. That play led to the first of 3 Todd Gurley touchdowns as he got to the outside edge and scored from 11 yards out to make it 8-0 in favor of the Rams.
Yeah, and you know, Patrick Peterson, obviously he's going to have to tackle in this defense, and he bit a little bit early on this play, and he missed the tackle right there, and Todd Gurley did a great job looking at where the pylon was, and he got to the end zone for the touchdown. Peterson
did have 8 tackles on the day. Johnny Hecker became the field goal kicker for the Rams. This a 20-yarder to make it 11-0. Greg Zuerlein got hurt in warm-ups, so Hecker, the punter, also handled kickoff duties as well, and that's why we saw the Rams go for 2 quite a bit. Special teams for the Cardinals had been good week 1, not so good in week 2. JoJo Natson with a 60-yard punt return basically goes untouched deep into Cardinals territory to the 32-yard line, which set up another Todd Gurley touchdown run. This one from a yard out on 4th down made it 19-0.
Yeah, and again, Gurley didn't have a ton of yards. I thought they contained him in the open field, but obviously he had 3 rushing touchdowns. They put him on the bench in the 4th quarter. Maybe he had some tightness, likely got an IV. The key right here is they went right down the middle, and they were able to score there. And again, he's a dangerous weapon when they get in the red zone.
Gurley contained for the most part, but inside the red zone, he was tough to bring down against the Cardinals. Jared Goff, though, had a big day, 354 yards passing. He hooks up with Cooks once again, 57 yards. Another deep chunk play for the Rams. They had 7 plays of 20 or more yards. But on that drive, the defense finally comes up with a stop and a great play by Patrick Peterson as Goff gets pressured out of the pocket and Peterson steps in front of Cooks.
Yeah, going back to the Jamar Taylor play, looked like a miscommunication in the secondary. You know, Budda Baker should have had the sack right there. It ended up with the Cardinals. Patrick Peterson was able to jump the route and make the interception.
Cardinals, though, not able to capitalize. They punt the football back to the Rams, who take advantage. This time it's Gurley from 2 yards out, add the 2-point conversion, and it's 27-0 late in the 3rd quarter.
Right up the middle.
Gurley just had all kinds of daylight,
well, they were
especially
getting
between
great
the
push.
tackles.
I mean, they got a good offensive line. Everyone talks about Andrew Whitworth, but their interior was able to get win the line of scrimmage, and that's where Gurley got the majority of his touchdowns.
Offensively, the Cardinals went 3 and out on their next 2 possessions. 3rd possession, Sam Bradford gets picked off looking for Chad Williams, intercepted by Sam Shields, the former Green Bay Packer, comes up with the interception. Bradford's 2nd of the season.
Quickly there, it looked like he forced the ball there. Chad Williams got to do a better job getting inside of the defensive back.
And this time, Goff, instead of handing it off to Gurley, throws it to Tyler Higbee. And this is a 3-yard touchdown to make it 34-0.
It looked like Josh Bynes was on that assignment. Obviously, he bit early on in there, and then he had to try to go out and cover the tight end. He was late to the party there, and that's how the tight end caught the touchdown.
Goff finished 24 of 32 for 354 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And the Cardinals are 0-2 for the first time since 2005 as they lose at LA Memorial Coliseum by the score of 34-0. They are back home now for back-to-back games against Chicago and Seattle. More in depth on those 2 opponents as the week progresses, but certainly a game to forget for the Cardinals. Remember, the last time they went, quote-unquote, on the road to Los Angeles, they played the Rams in London. That didn't go well either, 33-0. So in 2 games, 67-zip. Cardinals getting shut out by the Rams in their last 2 road contests in 2017 and 2018. Let's now hear from the 2 guys who had the call of Sunday's game. It's time for the 2-minute drill.
Dave Pasch and Ron Wolfley with the Arizona Cardinals 2-minute drill. Where do we start? really, where do we start? I have no idea. It was that bad today. 34-0. The Cardinals lose, and there really wasn't a bright spot.
I would start with this right here, David. The pattern repeated itself, right? From week number 1, of course, we saw the Cardinals defense go out against the Redskins and not give up any points. Now, it wasn't like the Redskins couldn't move the ball in the first quarter, but they didn't give up any points in that first quarter, and then they gave up 21. The same thing happened here today. Didn't give up any points in the first quarter, but, man, they hit the second quarter where the offense, once again, was struggling to move the ball in the first half and suddenly gave up 19 points. 40 points given up in the last 2 second quarters.
It did a better job on Todd Gurley, but in short yardage, Cardinals got pushed around at the line of scrimmage. Gurley had 3 touchdowns, a couple of 2-point conversions. On the other side of the ball, Sam Bradford was inaccurate week 1, and we chalked it up to, okay, he really hasn't played in a year, and almost 2 years, more than just a couple games. But then when it happens again, more red flags go up.
Yeah, absolutely. The inaccuracy of Sam Bradford was back here today. And once again, this is just something you don't see. And Sam Bradford would be the first guy to actually tell you this. He's the guy that, after that week 1 game against the Redskins, stepped forward and said, man, I don't know why I was so inaccurate. I'm going to have to find out why. But I do know this. He needs more help out of his wide receivers. He needs more help out of guys like Chad Williams, right, and J.J. Nelson. They've got to run dependable, good routes. And they also have got to be able to catch the ball when he throws it to him. So Sam Bradford, I know he was inaccurate here today again, but he needs a lot more help.
Sure, it wasn't just him. And it's really hard to say it's just one guy when you score 6 points in 2 games and give up the kind of points that the Cardinals have given up. And now they've got to face Khalil Mack and a young quarterback in Mitch Trubisky, but the good news is it's at home. In fact, the next 2 are at home, so a chance for the Cardinals to get back on track. For Ron Wolfley, I'm Dave Pasch. This has been the Arizona Cardinals 2-minute drill.
And the game on Sunday, Dave, 1:25 kickoff from State Farm Stadium, Cardinals and the Chicago Bears. 8:30 a.m. The pregame coverage will begin on the Arizona Cardinals radio network. As we continue here on Cards Cover 2, Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 p.m. live from the Cardinals facility in Tempe. You can catch us on azcardinals.com/live video. Search YouTube, hashtag, or I should say, Cards Cover 2 to find us online. Of course, if you missed the show, just download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. We talked about the playbook and it being scaled back, but certainly if you talk about this offense, MJ, and we know that it centers around one player, and that is David Johnson. Through 2 games, he has 28 touches. That number needs to be doubled, as far as you want him getting 28 touches perhaps each game, not over the course of 2 games. And that was something that was stressed on Monday from Coach Wilks, to try to find the way to get the ball in number 31's hands.
Yeah, and I understand, when you fall behind by 21 like you did in the Redskins game, and they gave up a late touchdown in the first quarter, and it was 19-0, and the Cardinals obviously deferred in the last couple of weeks, and those first possessions in the third quarter, that's where you got to come in handy. David Johnson, the first possession for the Cardinals, they picked up a first down, a nice pass to Christian Kirk, but he had 1 yard, 7 yards, and 4 yards. Second possession, he had 2 yards, minus 2 yards, so they faced a 3rd and 12, 2 passing downs. So for the first half, he carried the ball 7 for 19 times. Now, as for the game, he carried it 13 for 48 yards. Now, they came out in the third quarter and they ran the ball 3 consecutive times and had a punt. So the thought process at halftime, listen, if you want to say you're a physical football team, you have to rely on David Johnson. Now, Bruce Arians did a really good job moving him around in the passing game. We're starting to see a little bit different. I think they got to line him outside on the wheelhouse route. There's nothing against him in the flat screen passes. I get that. Probably not going to get the same yardage. But having him go over the middle and taking more hits, I don't agree with that. That's something, obviously, that sticks out in film. They're working on that. But if you're going to be a physical football team and he's one of the best players in the league at his position, feed the ball to David Johnson. I know when you fall behind, and if teams want to load up 8 in the box, that's where Bradford has to be accurate. You got to play chess here. But if you want to be a physical football team, you load up with David Johnson. He should be having those numbers in one game.
And get him in space to where he can make defenders miss where he is most effective when he gets some momentum running downhill, whether that's in the backfield or lined up as a wide receiver.
Yeah, and if everyone's going to go back to that Saints game last year where Sam Bradford was unbelievable, right?
Correct.
You know what happened in that game? He was protected.
Yes.
He's not getting the protection here. We talk about their strength is running the football. Pass protection, they got to improve. Obviously, if they get Gresham back, that should help. Derek Coleman only playing one snap on offense, okay? So they got to get better. If you go back to that Saints game, Sam Bradford was protected in that game, and that he was successful. Now, again, is he a little gun-shy right now? I don't know that, but we need to see him go through his progressions, not just look at one guy and then check it down. Go through his progressions, and that will loosen up the defense where you don't face an 8-man box.
Yeah, Coach Wilks brought up protection about a half a dozen times when he met the media on Monday. Of course, the focus, though, is how to get David Johnson more involved in the offense.
We talked about that, Bob, and we got to utilize David from a standpoint of get him out of the backfield, put him in a slot, putting him out there trying to create that matchup that we need. I think, David is very effective when he's out in space. So we got to start utilizing him in those particular manners.
Surprised he hasn't been able to generate much with the rare touches he's.
Well, you look at some of his runs, and a lot of it's just, David himself, just second effort kind of thing. Again, we got to do a better job sustaining blocks, allowing David to get to that second level to where he's so effective, and making the guy miss. So, again, it starts up front with the offensive line, and again, with us just being a little bit more creative in things that we're doing with him.
And David admitted last week that he had some mistakes in the first game. He said route running's got to become better. He said, I got to do a better job in pass protection. So, again, even though we look at him as the bell cow, there are some things that he still needs to work on. Regardless of Mike McCoy calls a pass for him over the middle, he's still got to run the right route. So it's not a finished product. He's still learning some different things of this offense, but I would agree they got to get him in space, and I think he's better off on the outside. Again, I don't mind a slant pass in the slot, a flare pass or a screen pass, but get him on the outside, and that is a matchup issue when he's in that wheelhouse route.
118 scrimmage yards through the first two games. We're used to seeing him amass that in one game, getting over 100 yards, whether rushing the football or catching the football. As far as play calling, that's come up as well. Steve Wilks was asked about Mike McCoy, and Coach said he's got, quote, total confidence in his offensive coordinator. But I'll go back to some other numbers you brought up falling behind. It's also the inability to sustain drives, convert on third down. They were 3 of 12 on Sunday, 4 of 20 overall. And when you get into a rhythm, whether it's the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, it's not 3 and out, it's not 4 and out, it's not 5 and out. It's those drives of 7, 8 where the chains continue to move. And yes, you need to convert on third down, but this team needs to be much better on first and second down as well.
Yeah, if you get it in a manageable 3rd and 3, it's not automatically just a passing down, okay? You can run out of that. If you're in 3rd and 7 or 8 or more, that's a passing down. And the problem is some of these receivers are not running to the first down marker. They're running before the sticks. And a lot of times when it's 3rd and maybe 15, you'll run a screen pass because basically you don't want to turn it over, and then you try to get some yardage so you can punt the ball. Again, punting is not a bad thing in this league. And Andy Lee, maybe it wasn't his best game, but obviously his hang time was good. Maybe he outkicked his coverage on that long return. Obviously, guys were in their gaps to make the tackle earlier in that. But again, you got to get in the rhythm, but you got to get positive yards on 1st and 2nd down so you're in a manageable 3rd down. I mean, we see Sean McVay run reverses, bubble screens, okay? We got to see more imagination from Mike McCoy running a bubble screen to a guy like Christian Kirk, running a reverse with J.J. Nelson. It's again, we do see motions, we do see formations change while they're at the line of scrimmage, and that's Bradford either checking in or out of a play. But we got to see some more guys moving around, again, so the defense isn't playing on their toes, they're playing on their heels where they're guessing a little bit. So there's got to be a little bit more imagination on the offense.
Well, and to Coach Wilks' point about self-inflicted, they look at the penalties, and you just look at what happened for the Cardinals offensively. First possession, 3rd and 2, Christian Kirk, a 10-yard catch. You convert on 3rd down, you're moving the chains. But the very next snap, DJ Humphries false start. Now it's a 1st and 15. 4th possession, first snap, Chase Edmonds false start. 1st and 15. Same drive, though. 3rd and 11. Larry Fitzgerald with a 15-yard catch. Got some momentum. What happens next? John Wetzel called for holding. 1st and 20. Second half. Second possession. 3rd and 5. Fitz a 9-yard catch. What happens next? Momentum stalls because Justin Pugh gets called for holding. Now it's 1st and 18. I went back and looked. Mason Cole, by the way, the lone first-round draft pick on that offensive line, the rookie, he was the only offensive lineman not to get a penalty called on him on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we're not talking about the rookie center that was drafted in the 3rd round.
And that's a positive if you want to look at it, and you can. But
all those things you brought up were all self-inflicted.
And it's one guy of the 11 on the field that all of a sudden the play breaks down. If everyone just does what they're supposed to, then maybe you can see this team move the football and have 8-yard receptions or 15-yard runs or 22-yard catches. But right now, it's just not happening for this Cardinals on offense.
Well, we look at, and I asked Coach today about splash plays. Splash plays, if you're not familiar with, they're 20 yards or more. And I said, how do you manufacture that? Now, Bradford, again, missed a couple open receivers because he was looking at one guy and then he decided to check it down. He missed, as I said, Ricky Seals and Chad Williams on the backside. Maybe he felt pressure and he was getting rid of the ball. Cardinals' longest play from scrimmage yesterday was 15 yards. The longest play from scrimmage this year has been 2 27-yard passes in week 1 against the Redskins. The Rams, you want to hear their splash plays? 57, 31, 29, 24, 22, 21, 20. Their lowest splash play was 17 yards. And again, though, because they're picking up 3rd downs, because Jared Goff has time to throw, they couldn't put pressure on him. And the way that the play calling is, you're getting one minute it's Woods, 1 minute it's Gurley, the next minute it's Cooks. I mean, they spread it out, and the receivers find ways to get open. So you got to have some splash plays in this offense, but that means you got to convert on 3rd down, and you can't be facing penalties that's going to push you back 5 or 6 extra yards.
And when you talk about the offense, it starts and stops with the quarterback. A lot of focus on Sam Bradford. He's completing almost 61% of his passes. That's good, but he's averaging 6.6 yards per completion through 2 games and had just 90 yards passing on 17 completions on Sunday.
They were kept showing a stat until the Cardinals finally passed midfield, which was late in the game. The Cardinals' average distance on 3rd down at one point was 8.5, and then it went down to 6.4. The Rams, they were below 3 to 4 all day, average distance on 3rd down.
Quarterback play is certainly a subject that Coach Wilks was asked about on Monday.
I think Sam is doing well. Is he inconsistent? Yes. All right. Does he need to be a little bit more accurate? Yes. But that's just not Sam. We need to get a little bit more protection. He needs to have a little bit more time to go through his progression. So, again, I don't think it's just one particular unit, offense, defense, or special teams, or one particular guy. So there's plenty of things that we need to improve on across the board.
That there'll be this public let's give Josh a chance thing coming on. What do you think of that idea?
Well, you know what, Bob, if I thought it was just that one position, I would be more than willing to say, you know what, we need to make a change. We need a spark. We need something to happen. But it's not just Sam. There's numerous things, as I just mentioned, that collectively we got to get better, and try to find a way to rectify these problems and, be a little bit more productive on the offensive side of the ball and still try to get off the field on the defensive side of the ball to give these guys more opportunities. So it's just not that one position.
And there is the Josh Rosen question, which we knew was going to get asked. Heck, it got asked after week 1. Coach didn't come out and specifically say Sam Bradford's my starter, but he certainly talked and acted like it. And I think we're both in agreement that Sam Bradford will at least get one more opportunity And again, you can't change all 11, but when things aren't going right, you need to change something. And right now, the big change will be trying to get David Johnson more involved as far as splitting out wide, and then, of course, scaling down the playbook and get these guys to just start reacting as opposed to thinking.
Yeah, playing a lot faster, getting open, getting separation, yards after catch. Listen, I understand that everyone in a lot of different cities, especially when you draft a guy where the Cardinals drafted Rosen, they always think the grass is greener. He's not ready to play. Now, push comes to shove, he's going to be throwing the mix. Hopefully it's down the road. Hopefully it's next year. But my biggest concern's on Rosen. And I think he's obviously more mobile, but there's two things that stuck out in training camp and a limited time in the preseason. Holds on to the ball too long, did that in college, suffered a couple of concussions, and he tries to throw in tight windows. Now, I understand it's the NFL. And if we go back to that throw to Kirk, we're crediting him for throwing a great pass and Kirk catching that ball in traffic in the preseason game, right?
New Orleans.
But that ball could have been picked off in a heartbeat. Now, I'll give him credit for taking chances. Sam Bradford is more accurate, and he has a better grasp of this offense. So when you say how bad and worse can they get, it always can get worse. I'm not saying that Bradford has to play better, but they owe it to the veterans in that locker room to give them the best chance to win. And right now, if all 11 guys are on the same page, Bradford still gives you the best chance to win.
And everyone else around him needs to do a better job doing their job, whether that's the offensive line, the wide receivers. Coach Wilks on Sunday, again on Monday, quote, receivers got to get off the jam at the line of scrimmage. Receivers have to create separation. They have to come back to the ball. That is just not happening. And, of course, Bradford gets the incompletions and all of a sudden his inaccuracies, and you wonder why. And perhaps now the shift, maybe the focus needs to start shifting towards the wide receivers. Coach Wilks again, though, says that he's comfortable and confident in the 5 that they have. Bottom line is Christian Kirk, 4 catches on Sunday. Larry Fitzgerald, 3. Chad Williams, J.J. Nelson, 0 catches on 4 targets.
Yeah, and Nelson played a lot more than he did in the previous game. And to me, again, I'm using him as a decoy. And I'm not fixated on having Bradford throw it 60 yards down the field. I'm talking about the intermediate routes, okay? Just seeing him on the field. If he gets by you, you could get a pass interference call. I mean, you got to take some chances sometimes. Now, clearly, you're not throwing it just to throw it. I mean, you got to make sure he's open and he's got the capability of catching the ball, but you could get a pass interference call. I would run J.J. Nelson on a reverse. He's got the speed. And it's, as I tell you all the time, it's more of an extended run play. I don't want him to try to break tackles. If they give him the reverse, he can run out of bounds 4 or 5 yards after the line of scrimmage. Now you're sitting at 2nd and 5. They just got to get more imaginary in some of this. But also you have, because I talked to somebody earlier that I trust, and they talked about energy and everything else. They said, Mike, it's about execution. You know, you can go in there and have the most energy and they feel like a sense of urgency. It's about execution. That means all 11 guys on both sides of the ball have to do their job. And if they stay in their gaps, then the next guy next to him is going to make the play. This is really all it comes down to is execution. We can talk about play calling. To me, it's subjective. It's always 20-20. If the play works, you're not criticized. The play doesn't work, well, it's the play caller. No, it's the players on the field.
Yeah, Bradford, like a lot of people, searching for answers offensively.
I wish that there were one thing that I could tell you that if we got that fixed, that it would be instantly better. I think there's a lot of things that need to improve for us to improve, and it's got to start happening now. It's 2 weeks in a row. We've let the defense down, and I think we all understand that we have to play better. Look at the tape, see exactly what type of mistakes were made. I definitely think that certain ones that were made today are correctable and fixable. And we're going to put everything we have into making sure that it does get corrected. We just haven't played very well. We didn't even give ourselves the opportunity to score points today. Frustrating, to say the least. I think to put so much work and to put so much effort into getting back onto the field and then to play the way we have the past 2 weeks, I think it's just really disappointing. You know, they're obviously a very talented defense, you know, at every level of the defense. You know, they just did a good job today, you know, really kind of limiting our run game. You know, we had some self-inflicted wounds that kind of set us back. You know, it's hard to play these guys when it's second and third and long.
And it's worth pointing out, it's not an excuse, it's a statement. The Rams are a very, very good football team. They deserve credit for what they've done, not only on Sunday, but the first 2 weeks of the regular season. Basically have shut out now the last 6 quarters, have not allowed a point, but it's the 5 first downs. It's not crossing midfield into the final drive. You want to say, as you said, execution. Losing the ball game on Sunday would not have hurt as much. It's how they lost that has caused so much angst, and now all of a sudden the spotlight has grown and become much hotter, specifically on this offense as far as what they need to do or what can they do to get it turned around.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. On paper, they have a better roster, but this is the NFL. Okay, you should be competitive. Yeah, they're going to score their points. I mean, there's a reason why they drafted Jared Goff #1. They drafted Todd Gurley 10th overall, Aaron Donald 13th overall. That's because they were always 7-9 or worse, and they've cashed in on their draft picks, okay? And they went out and spent money. They're building a new stadium, so they've gone all in. They have a talented roster. You can build a case between them, Minnesota, Philadelphia. I think the Saints, I'd put Jacksonville in there. Listen, I didn't think the Cardinals were going to win the game, but I thought they would at least be able to move the football and keep this thing competitive. And you know how the NFL works. Keep it competitive to the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game, and you got a chance. They have not been competitive. That's what bothers me.
Yeah, get to the fourth quarter and roll the dice, see what happens. Speaking of the fourth quarter, Larry Fitzgerald had to come out of this ball game in the fourth quarter because of a hamstring injury. Let's hear from number 11 on just how he feels and moving forward with this offense.
I could have played. I don't know how effective, you know, I could have been, but I could have managed my way through. But I don't know if that would have done anybody any good. So I'm gonna get on rehabbing it. You know, it's been a little tight last 10 days or so, but that's part of it, you know, and I'll get through it. Yeah, a little bit. I felt it grab, and then in the next play, I felt it again, and I said, you know, it wasn't like wasn't like a bad one. I didn't feel it pop or anything like that, but it grabbed good enough where I know if I would have maybe kept going at it, it could have got much worse, and I didn't want to add insult to injury. I mean, there's always going to be things that you can improve on, even in a good game. But you know, the inability to sustain drives and you know be able to just do some of the base things that we work on is frustrating. But we played a damn good football team today. The Rams. I mean, they'll be deep in the playoffs. You know, like where last year. I mean, this is a good ball club, and when you don't execute, I mean, you know, things like this happen at times. And, you know, when we play against good teams or play against anybody, we just got to do a much better job of executing, completing, catching, getting open, blocking. I mean, the whole gamut. I mean, there's player evaluations every single week. I mean, you're always looking in the mirror to see yourself improve, and you know that's something as a player you always do on yourself. I don't know about the evaluations coaches talking about, but anybody that has pride about what they do and you know has pride about their craft is always evaluating themselves and finding ways to be able to push themselves to be better. Just getting first downs. You know, let's start with sustaining drives, and you know if you do that consistently and convert on third downs, you know you put yourself in position to score more points. And you know we're not doing that at a high enough clip, and that's why we haven't scored the points that are necessary to win ball games. Sam's just one person out of 11 on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, the blame is not on anybody, one individual's shoulders. I mean, it's a team game. I mean, we across the board have to do a better job, man. You know, we can make Sam's job a heck of a lot easier, and you know, we're just not doing that right now. Surprised? I mean, after 15 years, nothing surprises me. You know, I would say I'm just, you know, a little disappointed by the way things are going this far. But you know, we're 2 weeks into the season. I mean, we can we can turn this around. You know, it just takes, you know, one sustained drive and a touchdown, and you build on that, and you continue to build on that, turn that in one quarter and one half into a game, and you know, that's how success is done. And you know, we have to have the constant belief that we can do that. Well, I think the general public gets confused with the preseason. You know, I hate the preseason. It does nothing for anybody, in my opinion. I mean, it's some players play, some players don't play. So the games are, you know, nobody's game planning. So it's hard to look at preseason games and really take anything from it.
Now, Wilks told us he made the decision for Larry Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Fitz wanted to go back in. Obviously, he's a gamer. He wants to be out there regardless of the score. He wants to help his team. And if we all know Larry Fitzgerald, and we've covered him since he's been a rookie, he'll be in action. And, you know, the main thing is he may not practice a couple days. We'll wait for the injury report. But if I had to guess, he's playing on Sunday. He's not going to miss games. But that was Wilks' decision to take him out.
This is Cards Cover 2. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki still to come here on this edition. Your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2. We do it after each and every show as we get closer to the end, as we always invite your comments via Twitter or Instagram here during the afternoon and weeks. Here, now the defense, you already pointed out the 7 plays of 20 yards or more, the chunk plays. And I'll say this about what the defense and what we saw. We did see them stop the run, do a much better job on Todd Gurley than we've seen teams in the past, yet it's inside the 20-yard line. Twice he scored from inside the 5. Twice he was able to get 2-point conversions running up the middle. I like the bend but don't break, but they broke often, and that is what's standing out for a lot of people defensively on this team, is you got to be able to come up with stops, and they just didn't have as many stops as they needed.
Yeah, and it was quite the contrary from the Redskins game. The Redskins were really methodical, 11, 12, 13 play drives, chew up 6, 7, 8 minutes of the clock. These guys score within 4 minutes. You look at some of their scoring drives, they couldn't put pressure on Goff, okay? And obviously Chandler Jones is playing a different position from a year ago with his hand in the dirt. Now he's not dropping back into coverage. He's actually got one job, which is rush the passer. Teams are going to chip him. Anytime you go against a good left tackle like Andrew Whitworth, those guys get paid too. Benson Mayowa, he played well. They just could not get pressure on Goff, and you could see that McVay was one step ahead of them with his play calling.
And if there's any more personnel changes, one has already taken place, as we saw Gerald Hodges get the start at linebacker over Dayon Buchanan, and it's certainly something that was anticipated because you saw what had happened against Washington with Buchanan and Hassan Reddick, and now all of a sudden at linebacker you've got 2 veterans in Josh Bynes and Hodges playing, while you've got your 2 first-round draft picks in Buchanan and Reddick on the sideline. Buchanan played 25 defensive snaps, Reddick only 3, but certainly the Cardinals and Coach Wilks talked about it. In fact, let's hear from Coach Wilks on that decision to play Hodges, and now all of a sudden you've got 2 first-round draft picks on the sidelines.
All those guys are still in the rotation. They're still in the mix. As I mentioned last night, trying to find the right mix of guys who's going to be in there. You know, again, I said it day one, there's no entitlement regardless of whether you were drafted or what status. You know, we're going to try to put the best guys out there who's going to help us win games. And that goes back to our performance and how we practice, you know, the things that we can go out there and execute from a game plan standpoint. So all those guys are in the mix. All those guys are going to continue to get their reps. And in the end, you know, I'm going to put the guys out there on Sunday who's going to give us a chance to win.
Doesn't matter how you got here. If you can't play, well, you're not going to see the field.
Yeah, and Buck is learning a new position, so to speak. I mean, last year Carlos Dansby was making the calls, and he's kind of creating some of his bad habits he did a year ago. And they didn't tolerate it. They started Hodges. He made one of the first plays of the game. As you mentioned, Buck did play 25 snaps, 35% of it. And then you got Hassan Reddick, who's learning a new position. He basically played his entire career with his hand in the dirt, and he's playing a new position. He only played, 3 snaps? I know on paper it looks bad because these are first-round picks, but I believe Steve Wilks when he says this, I'm going to play the best 11 guys. Listen, it doesn't matter how you get here. And we hear it all the time. How many undrafted free agents have made this roster? Look at Zeke Turner. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets more playing time in the box.
Yeah, we heard Wilks from day one. The best 11 will play.
Yeah, and again, Wilks wasn't here when they drafted two of those guys. Now, he's inherited them, and you got to fit to what you have. Now, I do think there's roles for both of those guys on this team, but, Trey Boston was a nice pickup, okay? He's got to make more plays. Budda Baker looks like he's still adapting to playing the corner slot position. He was really good when he came down the box. He's really good at attacking the ball carrier, but he's trailing the slot receiver right now. That's an adjustment for him. So there's a lot of adjustments, and fans are going to go, why didn't they just stick with a 3-4? They hired a head coach with a 4-3 background. They've had over 2,000 snaps. There's going to be growing pains, but it's not like Budda Baker's playing like he did last year. It's only 2 games, though. He'll get it. He's a smart football player. He loves ball, but it's going to take some time. People just don't want to hear it.
Yeah, Buchanan and Reddick, though, heavily involved on special teams. There were a couple other bright spots on defense. Patrick Peterson tied Antoine Bethea with a team-high 8 tackles, including 1 for a loss, an interception, and a pass defense. 2 other players showed up on defense as well. Coach Wilks highlighted those earlier on Monday.
I thought Robert played a good game up front. Again, one time you see him spin out of his gap, and that's where the ball hit. He can't do that, but great job of penetrating. He made some great tackles, tackle for loss. I thought he did some good things. He's got to win out one-on-ones versus the pass when he's one-on-one with the guard. I thought Benson Mayowa played well. He did some great things, very physical. Of course, he had a sack. I thought he did a good job getting penetration up front and made some plays on the quarterback. So, again, we had some guys that flashed, but overall as a team, we need more guys to step up.
And I'll tell you this, Robert Nkemdiche, not only does he play with energy, he's physical, and he's creating havoc in there. And you look at that guy, and you're going, you got to have a couple dogs in your team, and it's not a bad thing to say that. He's one of the guys, okay? You don't need a ton of them, but you need somebody to follow what he's doing. Yeah, again, he's never going to fill up the stat sheet. You're not going to question his effort. And I don't think it's really been effort. It's just more technique and gap discipline. I think guys are playing. They're just not playing to their assignments. But Robert Nkemdiche, to me, is setting the tone on defense with his physicality.
Well, it's the second straight week he's had a career high in tackles, 5 on Sunday after 4 the week before against Washington. And it's hard when you're playing inside on that defensive line to actually show up in the stat sheet, but you want to be disruptive. If it's not you making the play, then it's your teammate to your right or to your left making the play. And in addition to the 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, plus a quarterback hit over 52 snaps on Sunday, we challenged him last week. Do it again. Well, this is back-to-back weeks in which he's done it.
Well, and you see the push he's getting. I mean, his acceleration and his explosion off the ball. I mean, there are times when you see the offensive lineman on roller skates. I mean, listen, I know that the jury is still out on him. He stacked back-to-back good games. Again, he's a bright spot on the defense. Now we need other guys to do the same, and hopefully they have the same mentality of him. Now, he clearly needs to do it over a period of time. You just can't do it for a couple weeks and then take a couple weeks off. But I am encouraged the way he is playing, and hopefully it's contagious to other players.
The other player that Coach Wilks highlighted, Benson Mayowa, getting the play because Marcus Golden is still on the sideline, but he accounted for both of the Cardinals' sacks, first quarter, third quarter on Sunday. In addition, 7 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits. Here's someone, a veteran who has come in and taken advantage of the playing time. He's flashed, and he has made it a little bit easier for the Cardinals to be more cautious with a Marcus Golden, who was limited all week in practice. But it's good to see at least him make it known that he wants to get snaps on the field. He was on the field for 56 snaps on Sunday.
And it's just not what he's done. He did this in the preseason, did it in training camp. And this is going to be a great dilemma. They chose not to re-sign Kareem Martin. Okay, he went to the Giants. And you wonder how he would fit in this defense. Do they miss him? Well, all of a sudden when Golden comes back, whether he's on a snap count or not, you got a nice little rotation there with these top 3 guys, Mayowa, Golden and Jones. And again, that was Kareem Martin last year. So he's fitting in. He's got experience. He played well in Dallas, and he earned the right to be a free agent. And the Cardinals, he was one of the free agents they went out and signed early in free agency, and he's fit in quite well here. And he's one guy that can win one-on-one matchups, and he can get to the quarterback. So, I mean, Golden comes back. He'll bring energy, physicality, toughness. But I like the rotation there. We talk about the rotation in the interior with Peters and Kemdichi. Hopefully Pierre can return soon. Rodney Gunter's getting playing time. Both Smiths are getting playing time. But I really like, if they get Golden back, you got a nice three-man rotation at the outside linebacker, in this case, defensive end.
Well, and it's just extra depth as well, especially with Golden coming off an injury. But if you have someone, as Coach likes to point out, Coach Wilks, that you've got to be able to win your one-on-one matchups, shed blocks, and get to the ball carrier, whether it's a running back or a quarterback, and Benson Mayowa certainly was able to do that on Sunday.
And he's not a one-trick pony where he can just rush. Normally, teams run to the right side. Even though your left tackle is probably your premier your premier tackle, because he's going against the premier pass rushers, but teams like to run to the right, and so that tells me he's not only getting to the quarterback in sacks, but he's also doing a nice job sealing the edge, so some of these DBs like Boston and Baker or Peterson can come in and make tackles. So he's more of an all-around player versus just a one-trick pony.
Not a lot of bright spots, but certainly Benson Mayowa and Robert Kundichi, a couple of those guys that flashed on Sunday against the Rams. All right, time now here on Cards Cover 2 for the Bird Gang to sound off. Get to your questions via social media. And you certainly had plenty to sound off on, as we'll start with Twitter. And got a user wants to know, how can the Cardinals get their offense clicking in Week 3?
Well, I think we talked about it. They're going to scale the playbook back. Guys are going to be able to play faster. They got to rely on David Johnson. He's the bell cow of this offense. We can't walk away from a game where he only has 13 carries. And I know they fell behind. You still have to run the football. And that means the offensive line has to protect. Getting Gresham back will help this week. They got to protect the edges. But I just think scaling the playbook back, going what works, and if these receivers can get off press coverage, Bradford needs to find them. He's got to go through the more than one progression. So it's a work in progress. But I think by scaling it back and making David Johnson a focal point, that can go a long way.
Speaking of the playbook, got a user on Twitter wanting to know, how confident are you with the play-calling ability of Mike McCoy?
Well, I mean, it's only 2 games. I mean, clearly it's not something you want to put on film. I mean, you don't want that film out there. But, again, I think play-calling is so overrated. Now, can you have a little imagination and maybe shuffle some guys around, reverses and stuff like that? Yeah, but it's about execution. If guys are doing their job, we're not talking about the play calling.
Well, and I'll only add this. If this was a first-year offensive coordinator, perhaps there'd be some concern, but McCoy has a resume, and it is a lengthy resume, numerous stops, numerous different quarterbacks in which he's worked with, some names, some not so big names, yet he's had success across the board. And I think 2 games, like you said, it's a little early to be sitting there talking about play calling and whether Mike McCoy is up for the job.
Mike McCoy won a playoff game with Tim Tebow.
I knew you were gonna throw that out there. Let that
No, they're not
sink in.
signing Tim Tebow.
Last question from Twitter. It's something we addressed, but we can address again. Why aren't the Cardinals giving Josh Rosen a chance to play even when the Cardinals fall behind as they have in the first 2 weeks?
I mean, what purpose is that going to serve? Yeah, he's going to get reps, but if you hand the ball off, then you're conceding. Usually when you're trailing, you throw the football, and you're basically just allowing those defensive ends to pin their ears back and hit them. I mean, if you're going to give Josh Rosen a fair shot, it'd be to start a game or to come out of a half. I don't think you put him in at the end. It's mop-up duty. Listen, they don't want to be in that situation. I just don't want to see him get in there and they're going to throw the ball every down and he's going to take a beating. I think it's like a relief pitcher. I think you got to give him a clean slate, and who knows when that's going to be. But I'm not putting him in there in mop-up duty. Now, if this continues and they're getting blown out and you want to get him some reps, that's one thing. But you better be careful because teams are going to be teeing off on him because we know he's going to throw the football if they're coming from behind.
We move to Instagram, and this concerning Larry Fitzgerald. What is the news on Fitz and your expectation for his availability this week?
Well, if I know Larry Fitzgerald, I mean, he may not practice on Wednesday and Thursday, and quite frankly, he doesn't need to practice. I know they all need to be out there because of timing. If he's open, Bradford will find him. He's going to have to get treatment, but I anticipate he'll be on the field. He'll be in uniform on Sunday.
Last question here on Bird Gang Sound Off, and it's something we talked about and was a high topic of conversation on Cardinal Talk. The 4-3 defensive scheme, do you like it?
Yeah, I mean, this is what Steve Wilks did. I mean, do Cardinal fans forget about how Carolina stopped this Cardinals offense in the playoff game? You got to have players. Now, it's going to take time. They are acquiring players that are suited for a 4-3 scheme. I mean, guys got to make adjustments. I mean, again, the 3-4 defense last year was 16th overall in points allowed. Everyone tells me they're a top 5 defense. Yeah, yardage-wise, that's great. It's what you do when they get in the 20-yard line. So the feeling is, well, it wasn't broke, don't fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. They knew what they were hiring is Steve Wilks. He's a 4-3 guy. They want to play a 4-3. They got to get the personnel to play it, sure, but there's going to be adjustments. But they got enough players on defense to make plays, okay? It's not like they just forgot football. And if you really want me to get technical here, last year the Cardinals played a 5-man front. They had 3 guys with their hand in the dirt, and they had Chandler Jones and Marcus Golden on the outside. So they were playing a 5-man front last year. Everyone says they were playing a 3-4. Not necessarily.
Hashtag Cards Cover 2 using the number 2. Appreciate everyone's input here. We do it each and every show towards the end. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki here as we wrap up this edition of Cards Cover 2. Of course, back with you on Wednesday, and that's the big install day as the Cardinals will return to the practice field and try this time, the 3rd time, to get that first W in Week 3 when they take on the Chicago Bears. 1:25 is the kickoff from State Farm Stadium. Reminder, if you miss any part of the show or just want to hear more of Mike Jurecki, of course, just download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, mark it down on your schedule. 3 p.m. here live from the Cardinals facility in Tempe. Special thanks to Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Brandon Natus, Jesse Aranda, and Jackson Sipes. I'm Craig Grialou, my partner Mike Jurecki. We'll talk to you on Wednesday here on Cards Cover 2.